not sure if my microphone is working right now, so we'll see. Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing my next video in my palette roulette series, in which I pick a palette and I utilize it for a week, and then I come back to you and I talk to you about my experiences with said palette, reviewing it et al. And then we pick a new palette. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm so happy to have you here today. I am a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care, and I love reviews. I work in the beauty industry, so I get a lot of education on the beauty products that I am putting on my face, and I like to make sure that you guys are getting that education as well. I also just like to chatter about makeup, and you people are my people. So I hope that you will find that this soothes your soul here as much as it soothes mine, and that you'll want to subscribe before you go. But with that being said, let's roll into this palette. So these roulettes, these palette review videos of mine, don't typically have the end-all speak-all brand new palette that has showed itself on the market in them. I am typically reviewing the palettes that are in my collection that I haven't used yet, but today we actually have a treat, a special treat, because this palette is fairly new on the market. I do have the Pat McGrath Utopian Dream palette. For my birthday, the love of my life bought me a palette that I already had, and it was the Natasha Denona Green Brown. So I did end up taking that palette back, or was it the purple blue? I can't remember. Either way, I have those palettes. So I ended up finding a Sephora standalone store in my mini travels for work. I took that palette back. I had something like $258 to spend. So I purchased this palette. Up until that point, it wasn't a palette that was on my agenda to purchase because it didn't really appeal to me. Pat McGrath is not necessarily my cup of tea, honestly, when it comes to her eyeshadows. I like her mattes very little. Her Blitz Astrals are so phenomenal, so beautiful, and I love them, but the fact that I'm paying $125 for a palette that only has like typically 2 to 4 in it, I just don't get along with that thought process. And the fact that this is $129 for 10 shades that are 0.04 ounces a piece, when I can pick up a Natasha Denona, who is my formula of choice, for $129 at 0.08 ounces a piece and get 15 shades. It's never just been one of those brands that I've been like, yes, let's have them all. I reviewed 2 palettes from her this week. This Utopian Dream, which is very new, and this one, which is the Blitz Astral Quad in Ritualistic Rose. Both of these were stunning palettes, beautiful palettes. When I walked in to Sephora to return that palette and get new items, this guy was staring me in the face. And I was like, I have to try it. I have to get it. So all of her packaging comes like this for the most part. It has like this really beautiful box packaging. It, you know, goes together so so that these like kind of loop on each other and they close the box. It just gives the palette in and of itself a little bit more protection, because this is what the palette looks like. We all know what a Pat McGrath palette looks like. You guys can see my dirty grubby fingerprints. It is a beautiful lacquer, heavy lacquer box, right? This was, I'm going to show you the 2 palettes separately because I just think that that is the best way to do this. This is a $125 palette. It does have 0.47 ounces of product in it with 10 shadows. So each one of those shadows is 0.047 ounces per pan. This has a 4.5 star rating at Sephora with 39 reviews on it, and a 5-star rating at Pat McGrath with 171 reviews on it. Y'all know how I feel about those 5-star reviews on their own personal website, but I have to be honest, I think this palette definitely comes in at a 5 stars for me, which is saying a lot because of the aforementioned, you know, Pat McGrath like aversion that I have. The back of the palette has this beautiful like gold like plate. These don't say that this is the second like 1010 like this that I have of Pat McGrath. And these don't have the name of the palette on them. So if you want the name of the palette, you definitely have to keep your palette in its box, because the boxes do say right here in this gold lettering what this palette is. It just tells you to use it without caution, that it is a mothership palette, that shade throwing and eye ecstasy may result with prolonged use. That is what this blurb up here says. It doesn't really give you any indication of what's going on in this palette. And then the Pat McGrath Lab emblem is down here. It's stamped in. You also have the Pat McGrath Lab stamp here. It is a beautiful beveled mirror. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm hoping that you can. And this is what the shades look like in here, and they are just stunning. I mean, just stunning. I do have this one here, and this one here, and this one here on my eye look today. And I can tell you this one here is on the inner corner, and these two are what is buffed into my crease and above. And then I forgot, I also have this one in my outer corner and then buffed into the crease as well. So, I mean, lots of dimension in this palette, even though it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of dimension here. And whereas I have struggled with Pat McGrath mattes in the past, and maybe it's a learning opportunity, right? I didn't struggle with this at all. There was nothing about this palette that I did not love. Nothing. It was perfection, in my opinion. The thing that I can see that a lot of people are not going to love is this does only have 3 mattes in it, and the rest of them are shimmers to some extent. The only ones that are not flaky, chunky shimmers are these 3 here. These 4 over here are going to be your flaky, chunky, gets all over your face, glitter explosion kind of shimmers. So if you don't like something that is going to flake off all over your face, this probably is not the palette for you, but I would hesitate to say that Pat McGrath is probably not the formula that you will like either. I have an opinion on the Blitz Astral shades, the chunky, like, special shades of hers. They're always chunky and flaky. These ones, however, were a little bit more chunky and flaky than I think I have ever experienced with Pat McGrath in the past. I would also say that these ones were a little more sheer than I have ever experienced from the Blitz Astral shades with Pat McGrath in the past. With that said, the quote from Pat McGrath is that this palette is going to be your cosmic destination of floral psychedelia. It is so just absurd how beautiful these shadows are. And there was a crazy trio chrome in here. This guy here is actually kind of a shocker shade. Like, when I'm looking at it, it looks very like maroonish, but then if I turn it, it looks very golden, and then I turn it just slightly more and it looks green. I know that you guys maybe can see the like burgundy to gold in the camera, but man, it's just such a beautiful trio chrome. It was one of the first shades that I wore out of this palette because it just drew me in, and I'm not sorry about it. It is such a beautiful shadow. I love that it had 2 like highlighty shades, these 2 here on either side. This one is more of kind of like a lavender, almost like indigo, you know, sheer indigo shade. And then this one over here is definitely more your natural, like, inner corner shimmer, your brow bone shimmer, something along those lines. So this is your like everyday makeup highlighter, and then this one is your like go out on the town kind of clubbing inner corner shade. I think that also this one is kind of deep, but also kind of light as it is in the pan. Gets really, really very deep in an eye look. I think it is stunning. I think that is stunning. Like this palette, there was nothing I did not like about this palette. I'm not a fan of Pat McGrath for the most part. I mean, I do have a lot of Pat McGrath in my collection. I will be buying another one during the Sephora sale. I talked about it in my Sephora wish list with y'all and recommendations, and I got some great feedback in the comments section. So I will be buying the Midnight Sun one. Such a beautiful palette, and I cannot wait to get it into my hot little hands. So with that said, there was another item that came out with these palettes, with this palette specifically, and it is called the Intensifies Astral Wand. And this item came out with the intents and purposes of suggesting that you purchase it with this palette so that you could get the most intense thought process from the shimmers in this palette. I would say that I've read a little bit about this wand, and I would say that this should be more than a suggestion. This should be like required to be purchased with this. The reason why is because these shadows, like I said, go all over your face if you do not have a tacky base. Even if you have a tacky base, they're still going to kind of fall out all over your face. The difference is that they're not going to be like glitter explosion on your face upon application, but you are going to see some trickle down onto your skin throughout the day if you are not wearing a tacky base. That Intensifies Astral Wand, I believe, after reading what I have about it, is a tacky like base that you just like wipe onto your eyes. I'm gonna buy one. I am going to buy one because I definitely think that it is something that needs to pair with all Pat McGrath eyeshadows, not, well, besides the mattes, not just these Pat McGrath eyeshadows. I think that it is probably the perfect piece to make those that really don't love her eyeshadows love her eyeshadows. I put a tacky base on every single day minus that first day. And I'm really happy that I did, because without the tacky base and it falling all over your face all day long, I found that my eyes got really super irritated with the fact that things were falling into my eyes from the chunkier shadows in this palette. It does also state that you can use them wet or dry. It does suggest using the shimmer shadows wet. I would say wet and a tacky base is probably the best that you're going to get out of them. And what is on my eyes today is on top of a tacky base. I used a pigment glue on mine. You could use any kind of tacky base, but it needs to be some kind of glue that's going to keep that stuff on your eyeballs. The one thing that has always bothered me about the Pat McGrath eyeshadows is that this is a luxe box, I get it, but if you're not going to print the names of the shades on the palette or give the palette any indication of what is in this palette, like there's no like palette name or anything like that on this, do not print the names of the shadows on a hard ass card that doesn't fit into the palette. It drives me effing bonkers. I don't really care what the names of these shadows are, but for purposes of like doing an eye look or, you know, like this, talking to you guys about what I'm using, it would be super if this fit into the palette and was maybe a little less thick, maybe, you know, reminiscent of what you find in any other everyday, reminiscent of what you find in a Morphe palette. I know that's shitty because this is so much more expensive than a Morphe palette, but I would even prefer a card like that in this palette that I could close up into the palette so I could see what the names of the shades were in the palette. Then I would love this. Some people do not keep their stuff in boxes. Some people do not, and this fits really nicely at the bottom of the box and then the palette can go over the top of it. But I think I think it's stupid. Like, I really wish, if I'm paying $125 for this palette, I get that you think that I need a cardstock piece of paper telling me what the names of the shadows are, but I don't. I would rather have them on a strip of paper that I can, or plastic that I can put inside the palette and carry with me when I take the palette with me. And I also know that that's something that I'm saying from a person who travels, who, you know, takes palettes outside of their home on a regular. So I know that that's probably not an everyday person's concern. So then I also paired with it this palette, which is the Blitz Astral Quad in Ritualistic Rose. So these quads were all shimmer shadows, so there isn't any mattes in here. I will say though that this one here really functioned very, very well as a matte and an eye look. I do have it in a couple of eye looks on the outer corner and into the crease, much like I do the deeper shade today in my eyes. The other 3 shades are on my eye look today. And I just love this palette. I think that these colors go super well together. And because this one functions very nicely as also a matte, I think you could definitely get a good substantial amount of eye looks out of this palette if you just had this one palette. This is $65 for 0.2 ounces, which means every single one of these shadows in here is 0.05 ounces of product, which is slightly bigger than what you're seeing in this palette. Slightly, just ever so like a smidge, like you would never know just by looking at the palette and the other palette together. This one does come in its own like little box as well, and it also has that problem, that same problem, in my opinion, with the shadows being on a really thick cardboard piece of paper and you can't fit it into the quad. It also has the gold plating on the back, and it also has a nice mirror, but this mirror is not beveled. I think that when it comes down to, you know, what you're getting from Pat McGrath, I do think that they are worth the price because of the packaging and because of the special shades. But I do believe, here's the true tea, in my opinion, this is $65 for 4 shades. And while these shimmers are stunning, they're beautiful, they're on my eye look today, and I don't have any problems with them, I would rather pay $65 for a midi palette from Natasha Denona because her shimmers are just as beautiful. Now, she doesn't have the Blitz Astral shades, but I have to be honest, like, in my opinion, those Blitz Astral shades, I'm not sure that they're worth $65 for 4, specifically because I really think that these two function more as a shimmer. This one functions more as like a satin. This one is just sheer ass glitter is what it is. So I don't know if I think that this is worth it. I don't know that I think that $129 is worth it for 10 shadows. The packaging is what makes it worth it, in my opinion. Look at her holiday palettes. There's $78. There's 18 shadows in each one of them. I think that if they come in a cardboard package that doesn't look much different from this box, honestly, I think that they're stunning. I have last year's Christmas palette. I'm probably not going to get this year's Christmas palette because I'm going to get the Midnight Sun of this one. But I think that that one is worth it at $78. I don't know that I think that these are worth it because I would rather have packaging that, number one, you can fit a card into that tells you what the shadow names are, and number two, that you don't have to be afraid of taking with you places. So there's that. This one was inspired by 80s club kids. I'm not sure what that means. Is that a thing? Like, does it mean like 80s dance party kids? Is that what it means? I don't remember. Granted, I was very young in the 80s, but like, you know, 4, 5. I don't remember this being the colors that people wore, but maybe it is. These are beautiful, all metallic, multi-dimensional shimmers in this palette. This one has 3 mattes, and they go beautifully with the rest of them in here. And there is 1 trio chrome. I did not. Oh my God, I don't know why I am tripping all over myself in this review. I did not find anything about either one of these palettes that I hated, except for the packaging piece. That is it. These were stunning. They were extraordinary. They were beautiful. I had a lot of fun and I didn't get bored. And I don't think that there is ever a possibility that you could get bored. I did use every single shadow in each one of the palettes, but I think I could even get like 10 or 15 more looks out of this palette alone and still get a good baseline of some of the shadows that I only use minimally, like this one or this one or this one. This gold one, really pretty, like coppery orange gold. I don't know. I don't think that they're worth it, but I'm not unhappy that I have them and I'm about to spend the money to get another one. So, I mean, take that for what you will. Let's go ahead and swatch these guys. We're gonna do the big one first. I'll do the top row and then the bottom row. These shadows are so just, oh my god, silky, except for the like Blitz Astral shades, which do have a little bit more grippiness to them. And I think it's just because they're full of glitter, like truly. So first you have Skin Show Nude Ecstasy, you guys. This is the shadow that I put on my inner corner almost every single day. It went into my brow bone an awful lot. It is so pretty. I mean, look at that. Just one swipe of beautiful champagne-y creaminess that is just so pretty. All right, and then we have this one here, which is called Secret Eden. It is a matte in. It is kind of like a mauve, kind of like a pinky mauve tone. It is blended towards the brow bone in my eye look today. I just, maybe I've grown in my, of course I've grown in my makeup application since the first time that I used a Pat McGrath palette, but I had such a great time with the mattes in this palette. Then we have this one here, which is called Bronze Desire. Kind of got this like pinky, almost rose goldy bronzeness. And then we have this one, which is called Bronze Solaris 005. I think this looks very gold in an eye look, kind of like a coppery orange gold. All right, the next one is called Astral Venusian Orchid. So that's that whole top row, and I know that these two look very similar to each other, but I think you can see that this one is a little bit more like champagne-y and this one is a little bit more pink. Eye look, it actually looks very lilac. I don't know if you guys can see that flip there. Can you guys see the flip? It is such a beautiful shadow, and up close, oh god, it just looks wet. These shadows just look wet on your eye. It is crazy to me. Okay, so then we have the next row is Extreme Plum Noir, and I got a little bit of this guy's glitter in there, so it's not actually glittery, but it is a beautiful like deepened plum shadow, almost like a raisin is what I think of it. And then we have this one, which is called Cosmic Bloom. And this one is just like, again, almost wet. It looks very pretty in an eye look. It's kind of like corally. I put it on top of this one here in an eye look, and it just kind of faded so beautifully together in this eye look. This one is called Shockwave. I would say that this one was my least favorite to use in this palette. It is in my eye look today. It is right above that deepened plum shade in the outer corner and into the crease, and then it's buffed in above that, and then this shadow is buffed in above that. They just go so well together, and they create such a beautiful eye look. I mean, even the eye look I have on today, I think is stunning. I cannot say enough how much non-problems I had with this palette, because I was expecting, I was expecting to kind of have problems. I've had problems with Pat McGrath in the past. It really irritates me when my camera dies and I don't realize it's died, and I had such a wonderful conversation with myself for like easily the last 20 minutes. Because I don't remember what I said to myself, and I hope that I can convey the same excitement to you, or disdain, or whatever, that I did in the last 20 minutes. I do know that I got most of the swatches into the video before it stopped, but I'm done swatching, so I'm not going to swatch again. But what I will say is these two shadows here are the last two in the Utopian palette. This one right here is such a beautiful trio chrome, and it was the shock of my life because I didn't realize that this palette had a trio chrome. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but it goes like burgundy, gold, green. It is just so beautiful. One of my favorite eye looks from this palette was with that all over the lid. And I think that was my very first day. The trio chrome is called Blitz 6 Dream, and so, so pretty. And then this one up here is called Astral Amethyst Moon. And it is also just so pretty because they are stunning shadows. And then I also swatched the quad, the Blitz Astral Quad. So the first shadow I have here is called Antique Gold. It's a really pretty like margarine gold. I really found it to be quite sheer. It is actually what is in my brow bone today. It's mostly just glitter. And then we have this one here, which is Astral Rose Orchid. It is in my eye look today. It is on the inner corner portion, moved out into the center of the eyelid, and it is just such a pretty pink to gold shadow. Kind of has this like ethereal nature to it. Then we have this one here, which is called Rose Quartz 005, and it is just so, so pretty. It's kind of lavender purple, but also has this kind of rosy tone to it and almost like blue tone to it. It is so, so pretty. And then this shadow here, which is called Beyond Bronze 003, and it functioned very well as also a matte in an eyeshadow look because I had this bronze and also the extreme Plum Noir in the Utopian palette. I didn't feel like I needed a deeper, darker, more like defining dark tone in my eye looks to get the depth that I wanted in an eye look. That is what the palettes look like together, and I think I did make a really good choice in partnering these two palettes together because they are just stunning. Like the shadows in both are just stunning. I cannot tell you how surprised I was at how much I loved these palettes. And I think there's something to be said about like Pat McGrath shadows and, you know, your journey with makeup. Well, it said she makes these palettes for makeup artists, but here's the thing, you're selling it in a consumer market, so it needs to be easy for the consumers to also use. I think 3 years ago it was that I tried one of her palettes for the first time. I was not the consumer that needed to be trying these palettes, and I think that it needs to be said that unless you have some skill with makeup, these palettes are not going to do anything but piss you off. The fallout is extreme. You have to know how to use like a glue of some sort. You have to know that if a shadow is sheer, that you don't necessarily have to pack on 50 layers of it to get it to pronounce itself in your eye look in an impactful way. These are things that I've learned along the way, and I think that because my makeup skill is, you know, I'm not out here saying I'm the best makeup artist on the planet. I'm really not. I'm just a girl sitting at home who loves makeup, but I have taught myself an awful lot over the last 4 years, and I do know that part of the reason why I didn't have as many problems with this palette as I had with my other palette is because of my skill level. I feel like picking up that Pat McGrath palette that I had at the beginning of time, the Mothership with the green shade in it that I absolutely fell in love with when it first came out because green is my favorite color and the depiction on the box was just amazing, that I hated it. I hated it so much. But I think I might pick it up again and try it out again and see how I feel about it today versus how I felt about it when I first picked it up, brought it into my collection, used it, maybe even palette rouletted it. Because I absolutely cannot express enough how much fun I had with these palettes. I also cannot express enough how much there's nothing about these palettes that I did not like. The fallout. I guess the fallout would be the one thing that I didn't like, because it did cause eye irritation if it wasn't on a tacky base. The tacky base, you're still going to see some fallout, but it kind of keeps it at bay, and it kind of keeps it, you know, at a even keel, that it's not also falling all over into your eye looks. I don't know, you guys. I just love them. I just love them a lot. I loved these palettes. I still don't know that I think that they're worth the price, but I definitely think that they're beautiful. And I do think that if you're into it, you would love it. I promised somebody in my comment section, you know who you are, what I was going to do next. So the next palette I've already got picked out, but I'm going to pause right here. I'll be right back. I'm going to go wash off my hands. All right, my friends, the next palette we will be doing is the Natasha Denona Glam. So this has been in my collection for a while. It's not a palette that I even thought I wanted. I purchased it for one of my very good friends for her birthday. And before I gave it to her, I opened it up myself to see how it looked, and I kind of dug it. I kind of thought it was pretty. I think it's kind of boring. I might actually partner some single shadows with it, but this is the palette that I am going to try and use all on its own for the next week, and you guys will see the eye looks. You'll see if I partner it with some single shadows as well, but it is really pretty, and I have been really into cool tones lately, which is very strange to me, but this is the palette that I'll be using next week, and I hope that you guys are into it. I hope that you can't wait to see it. I hope that you'll want to stick around, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you're notified when I come to you next Monday to go over the Natasha Denona Glam palette. With that said, that's all I have for you guys today. I do hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you and yours are well. I hope 2021 is treating y'all kindly, that you are safe, healthy, and that you're loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.